The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
All right, Larry Pinckney, I'm going to bring him on. Larry Pinckney, the reason you guys like him so much, he's a veteran of the Black Panther Party, and he's the former Minister of Interior of the Republic of New Africa from the Black Panther Party, and he's a former political prisoner. And the FBI had their scopes on him. He spent some time in prison for his activities in the early Black Panther Party. He's with us for an hour last week and explained to us what the philosophy of the early Black Panther Party was, and it was nothing like most of us have been raised to believe. However, the Black Panther Party was infiltrated by what is it, Larry? COINTELPRO. Thank you. COINTELPRO. Co-Intelligence Operation Program by the FBI. And Larry, you read something to us last week here from an FBI report. And correct me if I've got any of this wrong, but it says, and I wrote it down, it says, Pinckney is dangerous. This is when they were looking at you. This is before they got you and stuck you in prison. It says, Pinckney is dangerous because of his ability to kill people. Is that what it said?
No, not at all.
Not at all. It said Pinckney is dangerous. See how I do shock radio, Larry? I shocked you, didn't I?
Yeah. You did.
I know. But here's what it says. It says Pinckney is dangerous because of his ability to unify both blacks and whites. He must be neutralized. We don't know his habits, but we'll utilize sex and drugs. So in other words, they didn't know if you were involved in sex and drugs, but they were going to utilize that to frame you and to get you in prison.
Right. They were clear about that.
They were clear about it. But, Larry, you're back today. We've only got this 30-minute segment, and now it's even less than that thanks to my big mouth. But here's what I want to do. I just want to ask you, Larry, you and I have talked a lot off air. We've spent hours off air, and you told me that you did a ton of research on Barack Obama years before he ran for president. And I'm going to hush, believe it or not. I'm going to let you talk. I want you to tell our audience your profile on Barack Obama, things that you discovered about him, and tell people how you got started kind of researching him. Go ahead, Larry. Thank you for coming to the show today.
Okay, thank you, and I want to thank you and my brother and the audience. I really, really do. Now, let me get to the meat and potatoes of this. Back in 1995, well before Barack Obama became a U.S. presidential candidate, well before that, we're talking back 1995, specifically in July of 1995, his book entitled Dreams from My Father, A Story of Race and Inheritance, was originally published. Now, talk about shock radio. What the book should be titled is, okay, I'm going to just be blunt, the book should be titled Deceit from My Father, okay, a story of race and political swindle. Because I urge people, and I'm urging everyone, look at the very cover of the book. This is what got me interested in Obama. I looked at the cover. I saw the title of the book. Now, remember, we're going back years, 95, when the book came out. And on the cover, even though the book is entitled Dreams from My Father, okay, you don't see Obama's father anywhere on that book, on that cover, do you? Yeah. What you do see is his grandfather in U.S. military uniform. That was misleading. It was deceitful, but it was very, very deliberate. I looked at that. I went, very interesting. And I did read the book, which I found in very large part disgusting. But I read it. I mean, I'll read things I don't particularly care for anyway.
Right.
So that's what prompted me to do some research, myself and some colleagues. And I found out, among other things, that Mr. Obama is a betrayer. He's a person who has no loyalties, no principles. He's a crass opportunist. Now, it's one thing for me to say that. Why don't I give a couple examples? I'm urging the audience to please use your critical thinking abilities and your common sense. Critical thinking and common sense, all right? Now, back in the mid-1990s, Obama was being groomed in Chicago, Illinois, by one Alice J. Palmer. Alice Palmer was at that time a state senator, an Illinois state senator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And also, Obama was, of course, attending the church where Jeremiah Wright, Reverend Wright, was the pastor. Okay? And he was also being groomed by Reverend Wright. Now, irrespective to what we may think of either Palmer or Wright, the fact is guess what Obama did? Obama betrayed both of them. He turned on them. People know about his having turned on Wright and distanced himself and pretending that, he didn't know Wright had made certain comments, blah, 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 yet he was supposed to be a regular churchgoer at Wright's church. Anyway, but people generally do not know about what Obama did to former state senator Alice J. Palmer. Again, irrespective of what we or you may think of former state senator Palmer, the fact is that she had groomed, among other people, or with other people, she had groomed Barack Obama to get this guy into politics. And he turned on her. In fact, what he did was he made it so, using quote-unquote supposed fraud, he, in essence, knocked her out of political running. Now, this is a person that was supposed to be his ally and his friend.
Right.
Okay? Now, I'm asking the listeners to think about this very, very deeply. If Obama would do this, and he did do this, to his allies and his friends, what in the heck do you think Obama will do and is doing to us, just plain, ordinary, everyday people? I go back to my original point where I said that Barack Obama has no loyalties and no principles and that he is a crass opportunist. I repeat, his book entitled Dreams from My Father, A Story of Race and Inheritance, should be titled Dreams, or Deceit, rather, from My Father, A Story of Race and Political Swindle. But you see, people didn't pay attention. People didn't do any research, or not enough of us did. We didn't check this guy out and see who and what he really is. You'll have to make your own assessment. Speaking of assessment, Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., said that we need to make our assessment of people based upon what, and I quote, the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
Exactly.
What does Barack Obama do? In fact, he does exactly the opposite.
The opposite, yep.
He plays some people call it the race card, I call it the color card. Let's be blunt. He plays the color card to the hilt in order to keep people divided and in each other's throats, and then he can run in and just as he did in the Trayvon Martin case when he said Trayvon could have been his son. Well, excuse me, anybody at a certain age could have been his son.
Right.
Why would the chief executive and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of this country even make such an absurd statement?
And Larry, not only does he play the color card, but everybody around him plays it. And I mean, everybody, Holder, all of his people, the media that's around, it's unbelievable. Larry, we got to take our first time out, and when we come back, I'm just going to turn it over and let you keep talking, okay?
Great, thanks.
Thank you for being here. Hey, our guest this afternoon, folks, Larry Pinckney for the first portion of Freedom Friday with Carl Gallup. Larry Pinckney is our guest. Larry, thank you for coming back. Listen, I'm going to hush and let you go. Just keep telling your story, and then you and I are going to wrap it up with some good stuff.
Okay. I want to say this. I want to reach back quickly to the day, as we would say back in the day, to Brother Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Sabaz. And Malcolm said, and I'm saying this because there are going to be some folks out there who are going to be very upset about me saying this. Oh, my God, this is the Black Panther, former Black Panther saying this. How can he say this about the brother, in quotation marks? Mm-hmm. I can say this about the brother, in quotation marks, because Malcolm said wrong is wrong no matter who says it or does it.
Well,
okay?
Thank you.
No matter who says it who does it.
That's right. Doesn't matter what color the skin is, wrong is wrong.
That's right. Now, there's an upcoming event that I'm sure people probably know about. The audience knows that this so-called March on Washington. I call it the Farce on Washington. In fact, it's going to be a bigger farce on Washington than the original one. And I call them the color and poverty pimps, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. They'll all be there pimping the pain of the people. It's back to Barack Obama. We have a guy who is anti-Constitution. He's essentially a war criminal, but he is quote unquote black or colored, and he's moving this nation of ours backwards, not forwards. And what's happening is that instead of people looking at each other as human beings, they're looking at the pigmentation of each other. We've got to bring a halt to that. This must be stopped. Right. And you're right, Carl, when you talk about Eric Holder, and it's not just Holder. Obama surrounds himself with people like this because that's his tactic. That's what he's about. That's what he's always been about, going back to 1995 and no doubt prior to that. All right. So what we did is we kind of put a new Black Panther in the White House. you know what's been put into the White House, in my humble opinion.
What?
A sham, a farce.
Yeah.
A hypocrite.
You know
what? I can respect people that I disagree with as long as they stick to their principles. There was a guy back in the day who his name was William F. Buckley.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with Buckley on a lot of things, but I sure had a lot of respect for the fact that he did stick to his principles.
Right.
Obama has no principles. He's a sham. He's a farce. He would sell any and is selling any and all of us out, including black people, for his own personal/political advantage. So that's what I call Mr. Obama.
Well, and Larry, I asked you to tell that story, and I know you could go on for another hour because you did so much research on it, but I asked you to tell that because I know he's a farce and a sham, too, in so many ways. I mean, in many ways, in many dimensions. And to have you say it, it vindicates me. I don't mind telling you, I used you today, brother. I mean,
truth is truth.
Well, truth is truth, but I mean, I'm an old white guy, so if I'm speaking truth, and there's not a racist bone in my body, there's not a racist instance in my past. Nobody can drag up anything in my past and say, see here where he was a racist. You just can't do it. That doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I'm not a racist. So when I just speak truth because I'm white, the first thing people say, you're a racist. Well, folks, now you've just heard from Larry Pinckney, a former Black Panther, saying almost the same stuff I've been saying for the last couple of years. So thank you, Larry. Larry, how do we... Go ahead. How do we bring it? We've only got 2 or 3 minutes. How do we bring about some healing for our nation? You and I have the same heart on this. I'm reading in the news headlines every day, going to be a race war, going to be a race war. My gosh, why? Why does there have to be a race war in America? I mean, what do we do?
We must not allow this to happen. There does not have to be a so-called race war in America. The only war that's going on right now is a war against the American people, everyday, ordinary, black, white, brown, red, and yellow people. The war is against us. It's already been declared, and it's being carried out by our own so-called government, which I put the word own in quotation marks. So, what we have to do as everyday people is we have to reach out directly to each other. The Democrat and Republican parties do not, I repeat, do not want us to do that. They want to keep us on the plantation. That anytime somebody arises that they perceive to be a threat, believe me, they'll come together to, quote, to use the FBI term, to neutralize that person politically.
Right.
We must circumvent that by reaching out to communicate directly. That's the last thing they want us to do.
Yeah.
To communicate directly with each other. Sure, we're going to have differences. We should have differences. We're not robots. We're human beings. But let's be honorable. Let's do it with dignity and respect. Let's learn and grow with each other.
That's right. Larry, I love the way you think. I love the way you talk. And, when you say communicate with each other and they can't stand it, and that's just what you and I are doing right now to people from coast to coast across this land and all over the world, because people are going to download this tomorrow all over the world. So we're communicating, and the powers that be hate it. Larry, we're going to have you come back on because guess what? We're out of time again.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide. The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.